There's a quiet truth that often gets buried under our desperate attempts to be seen, loved, or accepted by others. Until you respect yourself, nobody else will. Carl Jung hinted at this profound reality, not as a commandment, not as a warning, but as a simple observation of human nature. We project onto the world the way we treat ourselves. If we carry ourselves with self-doubt, we invite doubt. If we walk through life needing permission to feel worthy, we surrender our very soul to the hands of others, hoping they'll give us what we refuse to claim for ourselves. And the sad irony is, you could spend your whole life trying to prove that you're good enough, worthy enough, lovable enough. You could exhaust yourself in relationships, jobs, and conversations where you subtly beg for validation without even realizing it. But until you turn inward, until you look into your own reflection and decide, without conditions, without begging, without explanation, that you are already enough, the world will mirror your hesitation back to you over and over again. Respect isn't something you earn from others first. It's something you plant, nurture, and defend within yourself, long before the world catches up. This isn't arrogance. It's not pride. It's not pretending you're perfect. It's recognizing that self-worth is not a prize handed out by society. It's an inner decision, a silent, unshakable standard that says, I will no longer negotiate my value with anyone, not even with the parts of myself that still doubt it. Today, we'll walk through the hidden ways we abandon our self-respect and the small but powerful steps we can take to reclaim it, not as a performance, not as a tactic to impress anyone, but as an act of radical honesty with ourselves. Because in the end, no relationship will ever rise higher than the one you have with yourself, and until you respect yourself deeply, truly, consistently, nobody else will. Why are you still trying to prove your worth to others? It's a haunting question, isn't it? One that most people spend a lifetime avoiding, covering it up with endless achievements, applause, and the pursuit of approval. Yet beneath all the striving, there's often a quiet, aching voice that whispers, maybe if I do more, they'll finally see me. Maybe if I'm good enough, they'll finally stay. But where did this need begin? Why does the idea of being enough always seem tied to someone else's recognition? It usually starts early, when love, attention, or safety felt conditional, when the child you once were learned that being accepted sometimes meant shrinking, performing, or suppressing real emotions. And so you built a script without even realizing it, a script that said, my value depends on how others react to me. Every smile you chased, every rejection that cut deeper than it should have, they were all lines from the same play. A play where you're never quite the author, only an actor, waiting for a standing ovation that never truly satisfies. And here's the uncomfortable truth. No amount of external validation will ever fix an internal void. You can climb every ladder, win every title, gather every compliment like precious trophies, and still feel that hollow echo inside. Because when your worth depends on external sources, it is always at risk. One cold glance, one forgotten invitation, one misunderstanding, and suddenly you're questioning your very right to exist with pride. But what if you didn't need to prove anything? What if you were never supposed to? What if your existence itself is already a miracle? No performance required. Imagine the weight that would lift if you allowed yourself to be enough right now, without needing anyone else to stamp it as approved. Imagine how different your choices would be, your relationships, your energy, if you lived from a place of grounded, unshakable self-respect, instead of anxious striving. The truth is, the people who truly matter will never need you to prove your worth. They will see it because you see it. They will mirror it because you embody it. And those who demand proof, who make you jump through hoops to be enough for them, are revealing a truth you need to hear. It's not about you. It never was. Their inability to recognize your worth does not diminish it. It exposes their blindness, not your inadequacy. The day you stop trying to prove yourself is the day you start reclaiming yourself. And from that moment on, everything begins to change. The trap of external validation, when your worth is held hostage. There's a subtle kind of prison that most people live inside without even realizing it. It doesn't have walls or chains you can see. It doesn't shout at you or slam doors. It simply whispers, gently but persistently, "You're only valuable if they say you are." And before you know it, your self-worth is no longer your own. It belongs to the reactions, the approvals, the applause, or the silence of others. External validation is seductive because it feels so tangible. A compliment, a promotion, a like, a nod. These small moments can feel like proof that you're enough. They're easy to crave because they offer quick emotional relief from that gnawing inner doubt. But they are dangerous precisely because they are fleeting. They tie your sense of worth to circumstances beyond your control. One minute you are on top of the world. The next, a passing criticism or a missed text message sends you spiraling into self-doubt. The trap is deeper than just seeking praise. It's in building an identity around being seen a certain way. Kind, successful, attractive, intelligent. When your sense of self becomes a performance for others to validate, you lose touch with who you really are beneath the layers. You begin to tailor your choices not to what feels true, but to what might win approval. And slowly, quietly, you forget how to listen to the only voice that really matters. Your own. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to live that way? How you second-guess your instincts because you fear judgment? How you say yes when you mean no, just to avoid disappointing someone? How you stay silent when you want to speak, just to keep the peace? Every small act of self-betrayal feels like a minor thing in the moment, but they add up. They corrode your self-respect from the inside out, until one day you wake up and realize you've become a stranger to yourself. And yet many people stay trapped because there's a terrible illusion at play, that if you earn enough approval, you'll finally feel whole. But you won't. You never will. Because no amount of external validation can fix an internal self-rejection. It's like trying to fill a bottomless pit with handfuls of sand. No matter how much you pour in, it will never be enough until you stop the leaking from within. This is why real freedom begins the moment you take your worth off the market. When you stop offering it up for negotiation, when you decide that your value isn't up for debate, not based on your successes, your failures, your body, your mistakes, or your past. When you realize that validation from others can be appreciated, but never depended upon. The truth is, you will disappoint people. You will be misunderstood. You will not always be chosen, and that's okay. It has to be okay. Because if you live your life trying to dodge rejection and grasp approval at all costs, you will never actually live. You will only survive, quietly suffocating beneath the weight of invisible expectations. But when you stop living for validation, something extraordinary happens. You start making decisions based on alignment, not approval. You start speaking truth instead of seeking applause. You start creating a life that feels right to you, even if it doesn't look perfect to everyone else, and the respect you used to beg for. It begins to flow naturally because it is anchored in authenticity, not performance. So ask yourself, with radical honesty, where in your life are you still holding your worth hostage? Who are you still hoping will finally give you the validation you've been chasing? And what would happen if you simply decided today that you don't need it anymore? Real self-respect is not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It is silent, strong, and steady. It's the quiet power of knowing deep in your bones that you are enough, not because they said so, but because you finally said so yourself. No, the first concrete act of self-respect. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize that saying no is not a rejection of others. It's an affirmation of themselves. A simple word, 2 letters long, yet it carries the weight of entire lifetimes spent pleasing, apologizing, bending. For many, it's a word wrapped in fear. Fear of disappointing someone, fear of being judged, fear of losing love. But what if the real loss was never in saying no? What if the real loss has always been in all the times you said yes when your soul was screaming no? Learning to say no is often the very first tangible act of self-respect. Not the theoretical kind, not the kind you affirm with words, but betray with actions. It's the moment you draw a quiet, invisible line in the sand. Not to hurt others, not to be difficult, but to protect the sacred space of your own life, your own energy, your own dignity. Think about how many times you've agreed to something that didn't feel right, how many times you sacrificed your time, your peace, your values, just to avoid conflict or to maintain an image of being nice or easy to love. Every one of those yeses might have won you temporary approval, but they came at a cost measured not in applause, but in quiet, accumulating self-betrayal. Saying no is a decision to stop paying that price. And it's not just about boundaries with other people, it's about boundaries within yourself. Saying no to the habits that drain you. Saying no to the temptations that pull you away from your purpose. Saying no to the inner voices that try to convince you that you must earn rest, love, or worthiness. Every time you say no with clarity and intention, you reinforce a deeper yes. A yes to yourself, your truth, your peace. Of course, it's uncomfortable at first. You might feel guilty. You might second-guess yourself. You might even lose people. But here's something few will tell you. Anyone who leaves because you respected yourself was never really offering you love. They were offering you a transaction, their approval in exchange for your compliance. And when you stop complying, the illusion dissolves. True relationships, whether friendships, family ties, or romantic bonds, are not threatened by healthy boundaries. They are strengthened by them. When you say no with kindness but firmness, you give others a gift, the gift of knowing the real you, and you give yourself the gift of living in integrity rather than fear. So ask yourself, where have you been withholding your no? Where have you been silencing yourself for the sake of keeping peace on the outside while waging war on the inside? And what would it feel like to finally honor yourself enough to say, without anger, without apology, no, this is not for me? Because every no you offer from a place of self-respect plants a seed of freedom. Freedom from living as a mirror for others' expectations. Freedom from the exhausting weight of always performing. Freedom to stand tall, not because you fought the world, but because you finally stopped fighting yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real self-respect begins. Not in grand declarations, but in the quiet courage of a single word. The persona versus the true self. Who are you, really? At some point, whether we notice it or not, we all create a persona, a version of ourselves shaped to survive, to succeed, to belong. It's not a lie exactly. It's a mask woven out of all the things we believed we needed to be in order to be loved, accepted, and safe. But here's the danger. When you wear the mask for too long, you begin to forget it's a mask. You begin to think it's you. The persona is clever. It adapts to fit the expectations of others. It says the right things, smiles at the right moments, performs the right roles. It becomes the perfect student, the reliable friend, the accommodating partner, the agreeable co-worker. It learns to read the room, to anticipate what is wanted, and to become that, often at the cost of the true self, hidden somewhere underneath, growing quieter and quieter. But the true self does not perform. It does not negotiate its value. It simply exists, raw and imperfect, beautiful in its authenticity. It carries the full spectrum of who you are, your dreams, your doubts, your contradictions, your fierce tenderness, your sacred anger. It is not always polished. It does not always please everyone, but it is real, and it is the only foundation upon which real self-respect can stand. When you live through the persona, you are constantly seeking confirmation. Am I enough yet? Did I do it right? Do you approve of me now? It is a life of conditional worthiness, where your identity is forever tied to your performance. But when you start reconnecting with the true self, you realize something liberating. You don't have to earn your right to exist. You already have it. The journey back to the true self is not easy. It requires stripping away layers of conditioning, facing the uncomfortable possibility that you have betrayed parts of yourself for acceptance. It requires grieving the years spent trying to be someone you were never meant to be. But it also offers something priceless, the chance to live a life that is fully yours. So ask yourself, gently but honestly, who have you been pretending to be? What parts of you have you hidden away because you feared they were too much, too messy, too complicated for others to love? What dreams have you silenced because they didn't fit the script you were given? Reclaiming your true self is not about rejecting the persona with anger. It's about thanking it for the protection it offered when you didn't know better, and then laying it down like a heavy armor you no longer need. It's about allowing yourself to be seen, not just the curated version, but the whole truth of you, the brilliance and the brokenness, the wisdom and the wounds. Because real self-respect is not built on how perfectly you can perform the role assigned to you. It's built on the willingness to show up as you are, unmasked, unapologetic, and free. You are not your persona. You never were. You are something far deeper, far more beautiful, and the world is waiting for that version of you to finally step forward. How your shadow feeds submission. There's a part of you that you rarely show the world, a part shaped not by who you want to be, but by what you fear, repress, or deny. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the unconscious aspects of the self that we push out of sight because they don't fit the image we believe is acceptable. But what happens to the parts of yourself that you exile into the dark? They don't disappear. They don't dissolve. They wait. And if you are not aware, they begin to shape your life from behind the scenes, feeding patterns of submission and self-betrayal without you even realizing it. The shadow holds your anger, your ambition, your pain, your unspoken needs. It carries your resentment at being overlooked, your hunger to be respected, your deep desire to assert yourself. But when these forces remain unconscious, they don't empower you. They control you. They whisper that it's safer to stay small. They warn you not to rock the boat. They convince you to silence yourself, to accept less than you deserve, to bend and mold yourself until you are almost unrecognizable, even to your own heart. It's not that you are weak. It's that somewhere deep inside, you have made an unconscious pact with your shadow. If I suppress these dangerous parts of me, maybe I'll stay loved. Maybe I'll stay safe. But the safety is an illusion, and the cost is devastating. Every time you swallow your truth to avoid conflict, every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you tolerate disrespect because you fear abandonment, you are not just betraying yourself in the moment. You are strengthening the shadow's grip, teaching yourself that your needs are a threat to your survival. Submission, then, is not just about external forces pressuring you. It's about internal forces convincing you that pressure is your destiny. But what if you turned toward the shadow instead of running from it? What if you had the courage to ask, what is it that I am so afraid to feel? What truths about myself have I buried in order to be accepted? You might find that the very parts of you you were taught to fear, your anger, your ambition, your boundaries, are not your enemies. They are your guardians. They are the raw materials of your strength, your clarity, your sovereignty. To integrate your shadow is not to let your anger or pain rule you. It's to reclaim them with consciousness. It's to allow yourself to say, I have the right to be here. I have the right to want more. I have the right to say no. I have the right to respect myself, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because the truth is, you cannot respect yourself fully while you are at war with parts of yourself. You cannot stand tall while hiding from your own power. Integration is the only way forward. Not perfection, not constant self-policing, but wholeness. A wholeness that says, I am both light and shadow, and I do not need to apologize for either. Submission thrives in the absence of self-knowledge. Freedom begins the moment you dare to see yourself, not just the parts you're proud of, but all of it. To meet your own depth without fear, and to emerge from it, not diminished but expanded. You are not weak because you have a shadow. You are human, but you remain trapped only if you refuse to look at it. And the day you decide to face it, to listen to the truths you've buried, is the day you stop submitting and start living. Respect is not given. It is projected from within. We grow up hearing that respect must be earned, fought for, demanded from others. We're taught to think of it as something external, something that comes to us only when we achieve enough, please enough, succeed enough. But the deeper truth, the truth few dare to speak, is this. Real respect doesn't come from others first. It radiates from within. It is not given to you. It is projected by you. When you truly respect yourself, it changes the way you move through the world. It's in the way you walk into a room without needing to dominate it or shrink inside it. It's in the way you speak, not louder, not softer, but clearer. It's in the boundaries you hold without anger, the dreams you pursue without apology, the standards you refuse to lower just to be liked. Self-respect has a silent gravity to it. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't need a spotlight. It simply is. And because it is, the people around you respond to it, sometimes without even knowing why. They sense it in the way you carry yourself, the way you say no without flinching, the way you stay rooted when the winds of judgment or rejection blow around you. But if you are still waiting for the world to respect you so that you can finally feel worthy, you will be trapped in an endless cycle. because people treat you according to the standards you set for yourself. If you show them that you tolerate disrespect by tolerating it in silence, they will believe you. If you show them that you are willing to abandon yourself to be accepted, they will take advantage without a second thought. Not necessarily out of malice, but simply because you showed them how you expect to be treated. Respect starts inside, long before anyone else recognizes it. It's the quiet choices you make when no one is watching. It's the promises you keep to yourself, the ways you honor your time, your body, your energy. It's refusing to betray your own values, even when the temptation to fit in is strong. Especially then. Have you ever noticed how some people command respect effortlessly, even if they don't seek it? It's not because they have some secret charm or a perfect life. It's because they have decided, deeply and irrevocably, that they will not live in a way that dishonors who they are. Their respect for themselves creates a mirror that others cannot help but reflect back. But here's something even more powerful. When you respect yourself, you no longer need to force others to respect you. You no longer live on edge, scanning every interaction for signs of validation or rejection. You become free, because whether others see your worth or not becomes secondary to the fact that you see it. And yes, there will be people who don't get it. People who misinterpret your boundaries as arrogance, who mistake your self-trust for defiance. That's okay. Their reactions are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to stay aligned, to stay honest, to stay sovereign. So ask yourself, with full honesty, where are you still handing your self-respect over to the opinions of others? In what spaces do you still wait for permission to stand tall? And what would it look like to stop waiting, to start living as if your worth was never in question, never up for negotiation, never in need of external confirmation? Because the day you stop asking for respect and start embodying it is the day the world has no choice but to meet you at the level you've already claimed for yourself. 5 practical tools to regain self-respect. Self-respect is not built in grand, dramatic moments. It's forged quietly, in the small, almost invisible choices you make day after day. It's a daily practice, like tending a fire that would otherwise go out if left unattended. And while the journey toward reclaiming your self-respect is deeply personal, there are practical tools, simple but powerful, that can anchor you, guide you, and remind you of who you really are. The first tool is radical self-honesty. Without it, self-respect is impossible. Radical self-honesty means facing the parts of your life where you have betrayed your own values, not with shame, but with courage. It's easy to lie to yourself, to rationalize toxic relationships, soul-draining jobs, or habits that slowly dismantle your spirit. But every lie you tell yourself is a fracture in your self-respect. Healing begins when you choose truth over comfort. When you look yourself in the mirror and say, "I see what I've tolerated, I see what I've abandoned, and I choose better now." Without honesty, there is no foundation to build upon. The second tool is boundary setting, not the kind spoken with anger or resentment, but the kind drawn with love and clarity. A boundary is not a wall to keep people out. It's a framework to protect what matters most inside you. Every time you enforce a boundary, not to punish others, but to honor yourself, you send a signal to your subconscious. I matter. My peace matters. My energy matters. And slowly, that message rewrites the scripts of self-doubt you've been carrying for years. The third tool is daily self-commitment. This doesn't mean perfection. It means small, consistent actions that align with your highest values. It's waking up and honoring your promises to yourself, even when no one else is watching. It's choosing nourishment over numbing, presence over distraction, discipline over chaos. Every small act of keeping your word to yourself, no matter how insignificant it may seem, strengthens the invisible architecture of self-respect within you. The fourth tool is emotional regulation. Not suppression, not avoidance. Regulation. Self-respect grows when you learn to hold your emotions with compassion, without letting them dictate your actions. When you can feel anger without lashing out, sadness without collapsing, fear without fleeing, you prove to yourself that you are strong enough to stay with yourself through anything. That kind of inner loyalty, cultivated over time, becomes unbreakable. And finally, the fifth tool is conscious solitude, spending intentional time alone, not scrolling, not distracting, but sitting with yourself, listening to your own thoughts, feeling your own emotions, honoring your own presence. In a world that constantly demands you be everything to everyone, solitude is a radical act of self-respect. It's how you remember that you are enough without the noise, without the performance, without the constant seeking. These tools are not glamorous. They won't bring instant transformation, but practiced patiently, faithfully, they will rebuild the bridge back to yourself. They will reawaken the silent, steady dignity that you may have forgotten, but that never truly left you. Because self-respect isn't found in waiting for others to recognize your worth. It's built, moment by moment, choice by choice, in the quiet spaces where only you can hear the promises you make and keep to yourself. Emotional boundaries as inner leadership. There's a kind of leadership that has nothing to do with titles, applause, or visible authority. It's quieter, deeper, and infinitely more powerful. It's the leadership you exercise over your own inner world, the ability to set emotional boundaries that protect your peace, honor your truth, and preserve the sacred space of your mind and heart. Without emotional boundaries, your inner landscape becomes a battlefield, constantly shaped by the moods, demands, and expectations of others. With them, you become the sovereign ruler of your own life. Emotional boundaries are not walls built from fear. They are gates built from wisdom. They are not about shutting people out. They are about choosing who and what you allow to influence your emotions, your thoughts, your energy. Without them, you live in reaction mode, a prisoner of every passing criticism, every cold glance, every shifting mood of those around you. You lose yourself trying to manage the chaos outside, while neglecting the calm that could be cultivated within. True emotional boundaries begin with one powerful realization. You are not responsible for the emotions of others, their anger, their disappointment, their approval, their indifference. None of it defines your worth. You can care for others without carrying them. You can empathize without absorbing. You can love deeply without losing yourself. But it requires vigilance, because the world will often reward you for abandoning your emotional boundaries. It will praise your self-sacrifice, your endless availability, your ability to soothe everyone's storms but your own. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake that praise for love. You'll tell yourself that losing yourself is noble, but it's not. It's a slow erosion of your spirit disguised as virtue. Leadership, real leadership, means refusing to hand over the keys to your inner peace. It means noticing when someone's words trigger your old wounds and choosing to heal instead of react. It means recognizing when guilt tries to manipulate you into self-abandonment and standing firm anyway. It means protecting your emotional energy as fiercely as you would protect a precious flame from the wind. Ask yourself honestly, where are your emotional boundaries too porous? Where do you feel drained, resentful, or invisible because you have allowed someone else's emotions to dictate your actions? And more importantly, what would your life look like if you trusted yourself enough to guard your inner world as the sacred ground it is? Setting emotional boundaries doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. It means you trust that others are capable of handling their own emotions, just as you are capable of handling yours. It means you lead yourself with grace, even when the world pulls at you with invisible strings of expectation. When you lead yourself emotionally, you send a clear message to the world. I respect myself. I honor my peace. I will not abandon myself to meet your comfort. And that message, spoken without anger, without apology, becomes the unshakable foundation upon which every other relationship in your life is built. Self-respect begins when you stop waiting for others to honor your boundaries and start honoring them yourself. The fear of being alone, the final emotional shackle. There's a fear that runs deeper than most people care to admit. It's not the fear of failure or even the fear of rejection. It's the fear of standing alone. The fear that if you stop pleasing, stop bending, stop performing, you will be left behind, forgotten, unloved, alone. And so, without even realizing it, many trade their self-respect for companionship, their authenticity for approval, their inner peace for the illusion of belonging. But what is the true cost of that exchange? When you live in fear of being alone, you live half a life. You stay in friendships that exhaust you. You tolerate relationships that diminish you. You silence your voice in rooms where your truth is needed most. You swallow your dreams to maintain the fragile comfort of fitting in. And all the while, a quiet part of you, your truest self, is whispering that this isn't what real connection is supposed to feel like. The fear of being alone is a powerful emotional shackle because it convinces you that any connection is better than none. It blurs your ability to discern between companionship and captivity. But here's a truth that many learn only after deep heartbreak. Loneliness is not the absence of others. Loneliness is the absence of yourself. You can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone if you have abandoned your own soul in the process. True solitude, the kind that heals rather than wounds, is not about being cut off from the world. It's about standing rooted in yourself, whether others are present or not. It's about realizing that your own company is not a consolation prize. It's a homecoming, a remembering of your own enoughness, independent of who stays or who leaves. And paradoxically, it's only when you make peace with solitude that you become capable of real connection, because you no longer grasp at others out of fear. You no longer cling, beg, or compromise your truth just to avoid the ache of emptiness. You meet others not from a place of hunger, but from a place of fullness, not from need, but from choice. Ask yourself, how many decisions have you made? How many compromises have you lived because you feared being alone? And what would your life look like if you trusted that being with yourself was not a punishment, but a privilege? Freedom begins the moment you stop fearing your own company, the moment you sit with yourself, your thoughts, your hopes, your heartbreaks, and realize that even in silence, you are still whole. Because when you stop fearing solitude, you stop being hostage to the wrong people, the wrong opportunities, the wrong life. You rise beyond the need for external anchors. You become your own ground. And that is where true self-respect takes root, not in the presence of a crowd, but in the quiet courage to stand alone if necessary and still know that you are enough. The myth of being a good person and when it turns against you. From a young age, many of us are taught to be good, to be polite, to be agreeable, to be selfless. We are rewarded for being easy to manage, quick to forgive, slow to speak up. And little by little we absorb the message. To be loved, I must be good. And to be good, I must avoid conflict, say yes often, and never make anyone uncomfortable, even if that means making myself invisible. But what happens when this version of good becomes the very thing that keeps you trapped? There is a subtle but dangerous point when the desire to be a good person mutates into something else entirely, a deep, unconscious fear of being perceived as bad, and so you sacrifice your needs. You downplay your pain. You allow disrespect, manipulation, or neglect to go unchallenged, not because you enjoy it, but because the alternative would mean setting a boundary, voicing a truth, or saying no, and risking the label of being difficult, selfish, or not nice. This is where the myth of goodness turns against you, because what you've been told is goodness, self-denial, emotional suppression, endless accommodation, is not goodness at all. It's submission dressed as virtue. And while the world may applaud you for it, you know deep down it doesn't feel like love. It feels like quiet suffocation. True goodness is not about being liked. It's not about bending yourself in every direction to meet the expectations of others. It's about integrity. It's about having the courage to do what is right, not what is easy. Sometimes that means saying no when others expect yes. Sometimes it means walking away when you're expected to stay. Sometimes it means honoring your truth, even when no one else understands it. Being good does not mean being passive. It does not mean making yourself small so others feel comfortable. In fact, sometimes the most powerful, loving thing you can do is to disappoint someone, to refuse to carry what is not yours, to draw a line that says, "This is who I am, and I will not abandon myself to be approved of by you." Ask yourself, how much of your identity is wrapped up in being seen as a good person? And how often has that image come at the expense of your peace, your truth, your voice? How many times have you betrayed your own inner compass just to protect someone else's perception of you? The path to real self-respect requires dismantling this myth. It means understanding that goodness is not about self-erasure. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way that is honest, courageous, and kind, not just to others, but to yourself. Because if your version of goodness demands that you abandon your needs, silence your voice, or stay in harm's way, then it's not goodness, it's a mask. And the truth is, you don't need to be a good person in everyone's eyes. You need to be a whole person in your own. Your relationship with yourself sets the tone for everything. Every connection you make in this life, every friendship, every romance, every collaboration, carries an invisible reflection of the relationship you hold with yourself. It's not always obvious on the surface, but if you look closely, you'll see it everywhere. In the way you tolerate disrespect, in the way you chase affection, in the way you second-guess your needs, your dreams, your voice. When you have a fractured, conditional relationship with yourself, you will accept fractured, conditional relationships from others, not because you deserve less, but because deep down, you believe that's all you can have. When you betray your own boundaries to be loved, you teach others that your needs are negotiable. When you silence your truth to keep the peace, you teach the world that your voice doesn't matter. And when you constantly seek validation outside yourself, you send a signal that your worth is still up for debate. It's not that others are cruel by nature, it's that life and people often mirror back the standard you set for yourself. But here's the hopeful part. When you heal your relationship with yourself, everything else begins to shift. When you respect your time, others do too. When you honor your feelings, others are more likely to meet you with compassion. When you stand firmly in your truth, you attract relationships built on authenticity, not performance. The energy you cultivate within yourself becomes the foundation upon which every external connection is built. And healing that relationship doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. It requires daily acts of loyalty to yourself, the way you would show up for someone you truly love. It's speaking to yourself with kindness when you make a mistake. It's choosing nourishment over punishment when you feel vulnerable. It's protecting your peace not just when it's easy, but when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unfamiliar. Ask yourself, if someone treated you the way you treat yourself, would you call it love? Would you call it respect? Would you feel seen, valued, cherished? Or would you feel overlooked, criticized, abandoned? Your answers to those questions are not meant to shame you. They are meant to awaken you, because you are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You have the ability right now to renegotiate the terms of your own self-relationship, to move from neglect to nurturing, from judgment to understanding, from fear to trust. And when you do, you won't have to force others to respect you. You won't have to chase love, approval, or belonging. You will embody it. You will become a living standard of how you deserve to be treated. Your relationship with yourself is the blueprint for your life. Heal it, and you heal everything that follows. Respect starts from within and becomes unavoidable. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop chasing respect from the outside and begin cultivating it from the inside. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It doesn't come with grand announcements or demands. It happens quietly, like a river carving its way through stone, persistent, undeniable, inevitable. And once it takes root, respect from others becomes a natural extension of the way you already carry yourself. Respect that starts from within isn't based on achievements, appearances, or the approval of others. It's based on a deep, unshakable sense of self. It's a silent agreement you make with yourself that says, I am no longer available for anything that diminishes me. I no longer beg for spaces that do not see my worth. I no longer betray my own soul for scraps of validation. When you embody that level of self-respect, you walk differently through the world. You don't demand attention. You command it by your presence. You don't need to explain your worth. You radiate it in the way you treat yourself. The people who truly matter will recognize it without needing you to prove it. And the ones who can't or won't, they will naturally fall away because they no longer find space to feed on your self-doubt. This is the paradox. The less you chase external respect, the more it becomes unavoidable. Not because you fought for it, but because you became it. Building this kind of respect is not a one-time decision. It's a practice. It's in the way you show up for yourself every day, even in small, invisible ways. It's in the moments you say no, when every muscle in your body trembles with fear. It's in the moments you choose silence over defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It's in the quiet victories no one sees, when you protect your peace, honor your needs, stay loyal to your truth. Respect starts within the very first moment you decide, I am worthy because I exist. Not because I perform, not because I please, not because I achieve, but because I am. And once you live from that place, truly, consistently, everything else falls into place or falls away. Either way, you win. So if you find yourself exhausted from chasing respect, exhausted from explaining your worth, exhausted from trying to earn what should never have been conditional in the first place, pause, turn inward, begin there. Plant the seed of self-respect so deeply within yourself that no storm can uproot it. Because the world will treat you according to the standard you set for yourself, and when that standard is built on unshakable self-respect, the respect of others becomes not a prize to win, but a natural echo of the dignity you already carry. If there's one truth I hope you carry with you after this conversation, it's this: your worth was never up for negotiation. Not in your childhood, not in your struggles, not in your moments of doubt. It has always been there, quiet, steady, unshakable, waiting for you to finally recognize it yourself. Respect isn't something you chase. It's something you embody. It's the invisible armor you wear when you walk through life, aligned with your own soul. And once you cultivate it within, you no longer live on edge, waiting for the world to hand it to you. You become the source. You become the standard. Remember, every time you choose yourself, without anger, without apology, you strengthen that foundation. Every time you honor your truth over the comfort of approval, you teach the world how you are meant to be treated. Every time you dare to respect yourself first, you invite everything in your life to rise to meet you. So wherever you are in your journey right now, know this: you are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply remembering what the world may have tried to make you forget, that you are already worthy. You are already enough. And the respect you've been seeking all along begins with the way you choose to see yourself today. If this message resonated with you, if it stirred something inside you, I invite you to walk with it a little longer. Share this space with others who might need it too. And if you want to continue growing, reflecting, and strengthening that quiet power within you, don't forget to subscribe, to stay connected, to keep building this journey together. Until next time, stay rooted, stay true, and above all, respect yourself first.